Okay, so today's class is the first in our Pancake series, and we're really going to be starting same as we did with the splits challenge, where first week we're really focusing on positioning of the exercises, like getting into the position that is going to help us with the stretches. So we're really focusing on that position. If everyone could just mute their mics, just because there's a few people on the call here. Okay. Yeah, focusing on position and then focusing on learning to feel the stretch and relax into the stretch. So you want to, with these movements, you want to always be moving slowly into the positions, full awareness of what you're feeling, and focus on that feeling of like a nice stretch rather than like, that's really painful or that hurts or forcing anything that doesn't want to go. We're just focusing on getting that nice feeling where it feels really good to be in the position. And then hopefully if we have time, we're going to finish up with a little bit of Jane Fonda style work. I didn't bring the costume, but we'll finish with that. So let's get started. If you have questions at any point, please ask, and we'll go from there. So unmute if you need to ask a question. So one of the really important things when we're doing a pancake position, we have both the kind of forward fold component and then the legs apart component. So we're working so much stuff on this. We're working like all down the backs of our legs, our hamstrings, our calves, okay, like our piriformis, our glutes, like our lower back. But then we're also working, the kind of adductors and inner hamstrings because we're trying to get that wide leg position. So there's lots that goes into our position. And one of the most important things with our forward folding is the position of our pelvis. And it's kind of, for those of you who do the handstand classes, like we talk about tucking your butt under a lot. And for your pancake and your forward folding, we want to be thinking a little more about going in the other direction. So sticking your butt out. And what that does is it rotates your pelvis, and then you get more of a stretch on your hamstring, which is really what we're looking for here. So we're going to just start with standing pelvic rotations. So standing up, place your fingers on your hip bone at the front and your thumb at the back. And all we're going to do is rotate the pelvis forward by sticking your butt out and pressing into your fingers at the front with your hip bone, and then tucking your butt under at the back, and you'll feel yourself pressing into your thumbs. So we're just back and forward. And really try to initiate any movement from your pelvis. So you'll notice your spine changes shape as well when you do it. So your lower back arches when you do this and straightens when you go into this. But really think about it as that movement of the pelvis. And when we get into some of the other exercises, yeah, if everyone would just mute their mic when they come in, and there we go. I don't know, maybe I think everyone's muted now. We're good. Okay, so we're going to go into a little bit of a forward fold and do the same movement. So we're going to get into that anterior tilt, stick your butt out, bring your hands onto your legs. We're in this position, and then again, tuck your butt under, rotate your pelvis, stick your butt out. And we've got a nice bend in the knees here, but you still might be feeling a bit of a hamstring stretch as you stick the butt out. I know I can, even with this knee bend, I can feel a bit of a stretch in my hamstrings. And it's really important to understand and feel this movement, because when we get into some of the other stretches, it's going to start to feel a little bit harder. So we just want to make sure we do it in the simple position first, and then when we get to the more challenging positions, we can still do it. Okay, so now we have that pelvis position. We're going to grab a chair. So any chair that you can sit on and have your feet on the floor. So it can be a chair or bench, stool, anything where you can have your feet on the floor, nice and flat, and you can sit on your chair. Perfect. So the first exercise we're going to do is a piriformis stretch. Okay. And if you've been doing the challenge, if you've been doing the daily exercises, there's the elevated, the leg elevated piriformis stretch. And so this is a good one that if you're finding that one's awkward, like you don't have anything the right height, or it's just a little bit uncomfortable, this is a really good alternative you can do daily. So we're going to take one leg and we're going to bring it across your foot. So placing one foot across the other knee, just somewhere that feels comfortable. Okay, you're going to try and sit up tall. And then this is the working leg. Okay, so we want to think about the alignment and position of this leg that's in the front. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, this is my right leg, I'm going to take my left arm and I'm going to reach around, grab onto my leg, and then I'm just going to pull it up. So I'm pulling my knee towards my chest. So whoever just joined, if you could mute your mic, that would be great. Thank you. So pull your knee towards your chest. Okay, you can take your other hand, you can either hold onto the chair for a bit of support, or you can grab onto your wrist to help a little bit there with the position. So the position for this one, as I just said, is the alignment of your leg with your chest. So you want your body to be reaching along that leg. So what we're going to do now in this position is think about sitting up tall, because we might have slumped forward a little bit. So we're going to sit up tall and try to lengthen your body in the direction of your leg. So it's like your chest is coming up towards your knee, and you should be feeling that as a nice stretch around here. Now, if your knee doesn't come this high, that's fine. You can be a little lower, and then you might just need support with the other hand on the chair. But same thing, if you're down here, same thing, we're trying to lengthen, bring our chest towards our knee. And pull it up a little higher. Good, and we're just gonna hold that position, really try to relax into that stretch. Feel what's going on. I'm just gonna get comfortable spending time in the position. So while we're here, notice where you're feeling anything, what sensations you're feeling. Is it that nice stretching sensation? Are you feeling any kind of pain? And if so, let's move out of that position into something that feels better. And just think about it. Every time you exhale, try to lengthen along the direction of that leg. And that alignment cue is going to become really important when we progress this exercise to other variations. We always want to think about that alignment. Good. And then you can let that leg come down. Switch sides. So bring your other leg up. So got that foot flat on the floor, nice and stable. You're just going to bring your ankle up, find a position that is comfortable. I'm going to reach, this is my left leg now, so I'm going to reach my right arm all the way around. And then I'm going to pull up. I can use the other hand to help pull, or I can use the other hand to help keep me nice and stable. So first of all, we're just pulling up, and you might have slumped a little bit. So we're going to think about lengthening along our leg. So as you nice lengthen along here, and you should be feeling that. You should be feeling that somewhere around here. And again, just bring awareness to where you're feeling the stretch, to what you're feeling. Right? Again, you want a little bit of discomfort. You want a little bit of like, oh, that's a like nice stretching sensation, but you don't want anything painful. And then as you exhale, see if you can relax. And when I say relax, it's not like, oh, relax everything, right? It's the area that you're stretching. If you can feel that tension there, right? If you can feel where you're stretching, can you relax that specific area? Can you bring a little bit more awareness to that area and just let go of some of that tension you're holding there? And that's a very difficult skill. And that's one of the reasons why I like doing some of this more static style stretching, just spending time in positions, because we're training ourselves to kind of direct that relaxation and let go of some of the tension that we're holding. And a lot of your gains in flexibility, the increase in range of motion is going to come from just not holding as much tension in your muscles. So it's those neurological changes. You just let go of some of that tension, and you can get deeper into positions. Good. So let's put the chair aside, standing up. So this one, Ingrid's going to be really excited for this one. I know she was a big team horse dance member. We're going to do a horse dance, but we're going to make it a little bit easier today. And this is one of those exercises that throughout this month, we're going to make harder and harder. And by the end of it, you'll have to pick a side, right? Team horse dance or not horse dance. That's my side. So getting into our horse dance. We're going to go 3-step horse dance. So you're going to go heels out. So starting your feet together, go heels out, toes out, heels out, and then turn your feet. So your feet can either be pointing forward or slightly turned out, whatever is more comfortable. And from here, you're just going to sit down, squat down into that horse dance position. And you're going to place your hands on your knees, and you can kind of shrug your shoulders so that if your arms are locked out, you're kind of supporting yourself in this position. So let's think about our position while we're here. What we want is, we want your knees, okay? We don't want them kind of coming in. So you want your knees tracking over your toes. So pressing your knees over your toes. Don't want to be too tucked under here. So just think about having a little bit of that, keeping that arch in your lower back. And then just think about how deep can you sit between your legs. In this position. I'm not going to hold this for too long. Now, one of the really important things in this position is we're trying to stretch through here, and we're building strength in this position as well, but we want to use these muscles back here to think about pulling our legs wider. So it's not just kind of squatting into the position, it's pulling our legs wider. So see if you can squeeze these muscles here to pull your knees as wide as you can. We're just going to hold this for 10 more seconds, and then we're going to stand up and shake it out. Squeezing back here to open up. Good. Stand up, shake your legs out. If you're in this position and you have to come out earlier, or any position, just do so. It's always much better to come out of a stretch than to stay in something that isn't feeling good to you. So let's do one more round of this. So we're going to go heels out, toes out, heels out, and then straighten out your feet. So they're either pointing forward or slightly out, whatever's more comfortable. And we're going to exactly the same thing, squat down. But this time we're going to come down and place like your forearms on your legs. And we're just going to use that to push your knees a little bit wider. So you don't want to lean forward too much. You're still trying to stay upright, but we're just using our arms from a different angle. So we're just using our arms to gently push your knees out and get a little wider into that stretch. You can move around a little bit. You can explore just slightly, moving back and forward. We're going to do 10 more seconds. Good, and stand up. And when I say I'm not in team horse dance, I think horse dance is a fantastic exercise. I just find it particularly hard. So that's why I'm not in team horse dance. Okay, next exercise. We're going to do a standing forward fold. And this is essentially a pancake standing up. And I like it because it's kind of gravity pulls you down rather than when you're sitting up. Sometimes gravity is not really helping you get into the position. So for this one, we're going to go, let me go here. We're going to go legs fairly wide, feet pointing forward. And let's grab a couple of yoga blocks before we get into the stretch. And then you might not need them, but you might need them. So sorry, let's grab a couple of yoga blocks in case you need them. And we're going to go legs fairly wide, nice and straight, right? So for this exercise, we're going to keep our legs straight, feet pointing forward. And now this position of our pelvis is really important. So we're going to think about that sticking your butt out, that anterior pelvic tilt, squeezing the legs nice and tight. And you're going to hinge at your hips and fold forward. So it doesn't matter how far forward you go. This might be as far as you can go. Okay, you might be able to go a little bit further. What's important is we're maintaining that position here and we're keeping our legs nice and straight. So we're not doing this in this one, okay? And we're not doing this. So we're going as far as you can, keeping that position. And if you can't, if you're quite far from the floor, you can take your legs a little wider. Okay, and then you can either use yoga blocks, set up like this, or if you're a little further down, you can place your hands on the floor. I'm just going to use the yoga blocks in maybe in this position. So we got the legs nice and straight. We got that back nice and flat. And we're just going to notice where we're feeling the stretch here. And then see if we can relax. And see if you can, on an exhale, you might be able to sink a little bit deeper. And we're only going as low as you can go, keeping that position. And some of you who are more flexible might find that you can go elbows to floor, keeping that position. And some of you might still be on your yoga blocks. So it really doesn't matter where you are in the position. It matters that you're got the legs straight and you've got the butt sticking out. I'm just going to spend some time here. Relax your neck, relax your jaw. Every time you exhale, see if you can move a little bit deeper. And then if you're about as far as I am, or further, or hands on the floor, you can try grabbing onto the backs of your ankles and doing a very gentle pull. So it's just, you're not changing position, you're not forcing anything, you're just giving yourself a little bit extra assistance. Very gently see if you can go a little bit deeper. Okay, so you're going to keep holding this for about, we're going to do about another 10 seconds or 15 seconds. I'm just going to come and quickly take a peek on everyone's form. Oh, these are fantastic. Really lock your legs out nice and straight. That's great, Lisa, really nice. Good, and to come out of this one, bend your knees, bring your hands onto your legs, and help yourself up. And let's kind of shake that out a little bit, walk around. The next exercise you're going to do against a wall, and you probably want something a little bit softer for your feet. So if you're on a hard floor, just make sure you've got a yoga mat or a cushion or something on the floor. So we're going to do a tailor's pose, and we're going to be sitting against the wall. Now, I like to get into this from standing because I think it helps get into a really good position. So what we're going to do, a tailor's pose is basically your feet are together and you're sitting with your knees coming apart. So we're going to get into the position by rolling onto the outside of your feet and then just kind of sitting down against the wall. You might need to move your feet out a little bit. But the goal is to get your feet as close to your butt as you can. I'll give everyone a few seconds to just get in the position. So you're standing, and if getting in from standing didn't work for you, just getting from sitting, just sit down, bring your feet together, pull your feet as close to your butt as is comfortable. Good, I can see a few people still getting into the position there. What we're gonna do in this position, we're gonna start by thinking about the pelvis position. So bring your knees up a little bit. So you're not really in much of a stretch on this side. And then bring your lower back off the wall. So rotate your pelvis. So you're pushing your hip bones forward. And this is one of those positions where it might now be really hard to get that pelvic rotation. It's kind of easy standing, but it's a little harder in this position. So rotate the pelvis forward and notice your lower back there might be a gap now between your lower back and the wall. And you can even push your upper, like your shoulders into the wall to kind of help with that position. And then once you've got that pelvis position, you're going to maintain that and just try to let your knees come wider. So holding onto your ankles, let your knees drop down to the floor. Take some nice deep breaths. Notice where you're feeling any tension here, where you're feeling the restriction. Like what is it that's preventing your knees from going all the way to the floor? And once you notice where that tightness is, take a deep breath, see if you can relax those areas, let go of some of that tension. Now, one thing with this exercise that is really important is learning to engage these muscles back here to actually pull your knees down. So bring your knees up a little bit to start. So come out of the stretch slightly. And then place your hands behind your knees and press your knees into your hands. And feel the muscles that are working to do that movement. Okay, so you can feel those muscles back here working. So now take your hands out and use the same muscles to pull your knees as far as you can. And you might get, a little bit, I felt like I got about an extra half an inch or so just from really figuring out which muscles want to work to get into this position. Once you're there, you hold onto your ankles, actively pulling them down, at the same time as relaxing through here, which is hard. And while we're there, just check, have you lost that position of your pelvis? Is your lower back touching the wall? If it is, try to rotate the pelvis forward, get that little bit of an arch. And on the exhale, pull the knees further down. Now this position can feel really challenging and you can feel like you're getting a bit stuck. So if you are, you can very gently use your hands, okay? Just to give a little bit of extra weight. But this isn't a push or a force. This is just kind of it's almost like you're just placing your hands on your knees. You're just resting them there. And so just the weight of your arms, or not even your whole arm, just the weight of like your hand and wrist. So just a little bit extra to help you get a little bit deeper. Good. And to come out of this one, bring your knees together. Straighten your legs out. And then let's walk around because this one's a pretty intense stretch. So walk around, shake your legs out a little bit. And then we're going to come down. When you've done that, you're going to come down onto the mat. I'm just going to switch cameras. Here. So we're coming down onto our mat. Now for this one, we're going to do a frog stretch, but we're going to do a supported frog stretch. So you might want a cushion or a yoga block, depending on your flexibility. You might need 2 cushions. But the basic idea of what we're doing here is we're going to get into our frog position, but we're going to place something under this gap here so that we feel safe to relax into the stretch. And it's amazing how much nicer it feels when you can just relax into something. So I'm actually going to use this cushion to start. So I'm going to place this right under my legs. Okay, and I'm going to let my knees go out to the side, and the alignment here is I want my knees, my butt, and then my other knee in a straight line. Okay, so you can kind of look at yourself on camera if you see if that is straight, or if you're not sure, you can kind of just look back. You don't want to be back here. You don't want to be too far forward. Try and get that straight line alignment. In terms of your knees, I go about a 90-degree angle at my knees, so my feet are straight behind me. But if that's uncomfortable on your knees, you can bring your feet in closer. All right, there's nothing different about doing that. So just wherever feels comfortable. So you've got the cushion, and you might need two, you might need a yoga block, but that's just going to allow you to sink into something. So with your knees out to the side, you can either come down to your elbows or you can stay up here. And you're just going to try to relax, try to let your weight sink into that cushion. And again, notice where you feel tight in this one, what kind of sensation that is, whether you can relax a little bit more. Good. Just going to watch people. So really try to make sure that the cushion is supporting your hips and not your belly. That's it. So you want your legs touching. Another way you could do this is to have like two yoga blocks and have one, if you find like, and to kind of place one on either side here. And again, that can kind of support a little bit, allow you to relax, take some pressure off your knees. So that's an alternative. But the idea is just finding a way you can relax into the stretch. And if you feel any pain on your knees, you can also place like a cushion or something under the knees. The key with a lot of these stretches is just, let's get in a position that feels the most comfortable to us and that we're able to relax in the position. When the position just feels really difficult to get into in the first place, it's very hard to train yourself to sink deeper and relax into the position. So good. On your exhale, see if you can sink more into your cushion or yoga block. Good. Okay, to come out of this one, my favorite way to come out of it is just to kind of slide forward. It's not the most graceful, but to me it feels the nicest. And then we're going to stand up and walk around, because that one is pretty intense. So stand up, walk around, move your legs out. Good. Okay, so we have one more stretch that we're going to do, and then we're going to move into our Jane Fonda sequence. So for this one, if you have like a wedge, something like this, that is like a little wedge, use that. I know most people won't have that, so you can use a yoga block or a cushion. But what we're going to do is, I'll show you with the cushion first. You're going to sit in a straddle position with your butt elevated. Now, if I'm just sitting here upright with my butt elevated, it's not helping me get into that anterior tilt. So what I kind of need to do if I'm on a cushion or yoga block is kind of shuffle to the edge of the yoga block so that my butt is almost falling off. And that helps me get into a better pelvic position. So it really helps me roll my pelvis forward. If you have a wedge, it is way easier to do that because you just sit on the wedge and it basically tilts your pelvis forward. So if you've got a cushion, sit on the edge of it, okay? And then get into that anterior pelvic tilt. So your butt sticking out, your pelvis rotated forward. Okay, so get into that position. If you're on a wedge, you're kind of, it's a little bit easier. I'm just gonna come and have a look at everyone's positions. Looking really good. Nice. Okay, so we're gonna do a pancake in this from the wedge. Legs can be as wide as you're comfortable going. And we're just gonna get into that anterior position. And you're gonna use spider fingers here. So we're trying to do that same flat back that we were doing in the standing forward fold. And you're gonna spider walk your fingers out, keeping your back flat. And once you get kind of as far as you're comfortable going, you can bring your elbows down, or you can stay on your fingertips. But again, the key here is that position, and we don't want to go into this. Okay, there's nothing wrong with this as a position. It's just not necessarily stretching the things that we're really trying to stretch. And that's why positioning is so important, because if you're not in the right position, you're not stretching the thing that you're intending to stretch. So make sure you've got that butt sticking out. We're going to do this one with straight legs.
Hey, Kirsty.
Yes.
I always wondered, what's the point of elevation here? Is it just to like achieve more range versus being on the ground, or?
It's to help you get into an anterior pelvic tilt. So if you don't have a problem with that while sitting on the floor, like if you're able to get in a full pancake, or you find it really easy to get in that anterior tilt here, then it's fine to do this without the elevation. The elevation just, for a lot of people, even like sitting upright, you'll be in this position. And it's really hard to even for me, it's not easy to anteriorly tilt my pelvis in a seated position. Like I find it's quite challenging. So that the elevation really just helps that. So if I prop my butt up and sit on the edge, it rolls my hips forward automatically, which helps me get into that better position. So that's the reason. It's meant to make it a little bit easier to get in the position that is going to help for the pancake. Does that make sense, Mar?
That makes total sense. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. So absolutely, if you feel like you can do this one without the elevation, that is fine. Just make sure you're getting that pelvis position. So we're going to try and relax and spider finger our hands a little further out. So take a nice deep breath, and then you can walk out a little bit further. Again, notice where you're feeling the tightness. What's restricting you from going deeper? And it might be in here, might be in your lower back, might be your hamstrings. And wherever you're feeling that restriction or that tension, just see if you can let go of that. See if you can relax as you exhale. And relax your neck and jaw. Whenever I say that, it's because I noticed that my neck and jaw is tense. So it's a constant, I'm constantly having to remind myself of that. Good. And then you're going to use your hands to come up and out of that stretch. So what we're going to do now, we've done a lot of kind of opening things up, getting deeper into stretches, but something that I'm sure many of you will have found before is you'll do a sequence like this, or you'll do some foam rolling, soft tissue work, and you can get deeper into positions. And then the next day you wake up and it's same tightness as it was the day before. And so one thing I find really helpful for just making your kind of increases in range of motion more long lasting is a little bit of active work. Kind of if we're stretching this side, we're trying to get our legs as wide apart as we can. Okay, strengthening this side in that end range can really help, not just kind of things, not have things just tighten up again. So the first exercise we're doing, and I'm sure you've done this exercise before, most of you anyway, especially if you've done the Jane Fonda videos. And but we're going to do it with a real focus on the details. So the exercise is basically your dog peeing up a fire hydrant exercise. But the way we're going to do this is we're going to really focus on keeping our torso facing the floor, so our whole body stays facing the floor. And I don't want your hips to rotate. So if I'm here, I don't want, okay, I'm trying to see if you guys can see, like my whole hip pelvis is rotating here. So my butt is now facing you. I want to lift up, keeping my hip in the same position, right? So I'm really using this and I'm keeping my hips, right, facing the floor. So if I have headlights on my hip bones, they stay facing the floor. So I'm just lifting up and you'll find your range of motion is a lot less, but you're really using this muscle back here. Okay, so we're going to do 10 on your hands and knees. Have your shoulders under your hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips. So there's a little bit of a space between your knees. And then you're going to keep your hip bones facing the floor while you lift up. Hold for a second. Really feel this working. And then lower down. And lower down. We're going to do 10 each side. It's a lift with a 1 second hold each side. I'm just going to peek on everyone's form here. Really good. That's it. And hopefully, good. One thing to just really keep in mind is the knee. You want it to come straight out here and not back here. Okay, so we don't want the leg going back there. You want it coming straight out to the side. And switching sides. So when you've done 10, really think about keeping the hips facing the floor. And you might find one is more restricted than the other or has less range of motion. That's okay. This is one of those ones where you've got to put your ego aside, like you're like, ooh, I can get my leg all the way up here. But you want to focus on that position. And I'm not saying the other variation's wrong. I'm just saying for our middle split, what we're trying to achieve here, this one gives us much better, much more benefit. Okay, the next exercise, we're going to lie on our side on the floor. And the first thing we're going to do is make sure our shoulders are stacked over each other. Well, what I mean is like we're all in one line. So we can imagine like we're in a very narrow corridor. Our hips are stacked on top of each other, our body's stacked. So I'm not rolling forward or rolling back. So we're lying on our side. You're going to bring the top leg over like this. I like to flex the toes on the bottom leg, and then you're going to lift that bottom leg up. So you're using all these muscles here. So we're going to lift, pause, and lower. And don't worry again about how high that leg lifts. If it barely lifts off the floor or doesn't even lift off the floor, that's fine. If you can always come lower on the floor lie right down. If you're having a hard time lifting, should be a little bit easier than if you're up here. So 10 reps at that nice slow pace, and then switch to the other side. So first thing, you're just making sure your hips are stacked, everything's in that alignment. Bring your foot over, lift your leg and lower. Good. Okay, we have one more exercise. So this last one, this one is a little more difficult to explain, but your hips are going to again be stacked on top of each other. You're going to take the top leg and you're going to internally rotate it. So I'm turning my entire leg to try and point my toes towards the floor. So the rotation, it's not just my ankle that's rotating. The rotation comes from up here. So I'm rotating my whole leg to try and point my foot towards the floor. Now you'll see it's not rotated all the way around. That's as much internal rotation as my hip is going to get. Now, rather than being right in line with my foot, I'm going to bring it a little forward, and then I'm going to lower it to the floor and then lift it up. Lower and lift. Okay, so from the side, it's that rotation, slightly forward, touch the floor and lift. Okay, nice and slow, 10 on each side. Good. And then switch sides. Mine was burning. I don't know about you guys, but that one really, really hit something. Okay. So rotate from the hip. Bring your leg forward, touch the floor and lift. So my hips stay stacked. It's just the angle of my leg that's changing. Good. Okay. Let's stand up, walk around a little bit. So you can do, we're just going to do the one round of that, but you could do another round of that if you were to redo this, this circuit. We're just going to do that one round today. So any questions? How's everyone feeling?
That was hard.
Awesome. It's meant to be. Yeah, stretching's not easy. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of focusing on details and focusing on how things feel and awareness. So yeah, it's not easy for sure. Any other comments, questions? You guys did really great. Oh, Susanna?
I have so much difficulty to stick out my butt. It's even in standing, but as soon as I'm sitting, I'm lost. That pancake thing was really, really hard for me.
Yeah, no, it is, and yeah, it's not an easy thing to do, and it's just a constantly working that because you know any tightness in the back of your legs is going to make it harder to get that rotation. And you can, you know, with a lot of these exercises, if you're having a really hard time, you can bend the knees slightly. I know I was saying with a lot of them today, let's lock the legs out. But if you just really can't get into that pelvic position, then I would bend the knees in order to try and get that. But yeah, it is hard. Don't worry, you're not alone.
Okay.
Not alone.
Thanks.
What
Awesome.
about when I'm doing the one where you're laying on your belly with the cushion? I get like a cramp in my hip.
Right
So what do you do? I mean, I have to keep.
in here, so more in this
yeah.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am
So I
Is
mean,
it wrong?
the cramping tends to happen when a muscle's in a shortened position. And so I'm just trying to figure out which muscle would be cramping in that position. I mean, I guess with any cramping, you can always back off and come out of the stretch. But you can also, I find, doing work in the position, so strengthening that position. So for example, if I always get cramping when my leg comes up like this, then the more I can kind of train getting close to that, the less likely I find that I get cramp. So the more you kind of train a position, often you're less likely to get that cramping. I'll also share an article with you guys that Kate Galliot wrote about muscle cramps and kind of just learning to sit with the cramp, and like as you feel it coming on, you can kind of almost control it. And so that might also be another solution. But you know, cramping in itself is not, you know, it's not, nothing bad is really going to happen other than, you know, sometimes you get that dead leg feeling afterwards. But you're not going to pull or tear anything like when you're cramping, because it usually happens when you're in that shortened position, but it just can be really uncomfortable. So it's just kind of playing, backing off, seeing how far you can go, maybe continuing to try and strengthen that position. So hopefully that helps. It is a bit of a fuzzy area.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Well, great job, everyone. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go
Thank
eat chocolate and open presents.
Yeah.
Thanks, Christy.
Hey,
Okay. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
bye. Happy birthday.
Thank you.